Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.
Hello there, I'm Eamon Holmes.
And I'm Isabel Webster.
And we hope you can join us for
Breakfast with Eamon.
And Isabel.
You make me laugh out loud, belly laugh.
Is that important first thing in the morning?
Yeah, absolutely.
And there's me trying to be deadly serious. News is a serious business.
Yeah, I have to rein you in sometimes.
Well, it doesn't stop us laughing at it. It doesn't stop us having an opinion on what's going on.
Yeah.
And it certainly will not stop us reflecting what you think.
Weekdays from 6 to 9:30 on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Good morning, it's 9:30 and this is The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, on your TV and on your radio. Today we'll be talking to a Ukrainian MP about the situation on the ground in Ukraine. We'll also be looking at the Russian financial system. Might there be a run on the banks? And here at home, the UK's tax burden is being examined by the Treasury Select Committee. Just how bad will it get? All that coming up after your headlines.
A very good morning, it's 9:30. I'm Rosie Wright, here to keep you up to date on GB News. Ukraine's president has asked the European Union for immediate accession to the EU, as talks are held today with Moscow on the Belarus border to try to end the conflict. The country faced more heavy fire overnight, with fighting near the city of Mariupol and blasts being heard in Kiev and Kharkiv this morning. The UK Ministry of Defence says the bulk of Russia's ground forces are said to be around 18 miles north of the capital. Satellite images taken yesterday show a military convoy heading towards Kiev. Ukraine has called on foreigners with combat experience to join the fight. But the UK's Armed Forces Minister, James Heappey, says British citizens should think twice.
War is brutal. It's not the sort of thing that you jump on a plane to go and do for the fun of it. The people that you are seeing picking up Kalashnikov rifles in Kiev today are doing so because they face an existential threat and they are desperate, and that is inspirational. But I don't think we should be encouraging British citizens to go to Ukraine.
The United Nations nuclear watchdog says missiles have hit a radioactive waste disposal site in Kiev overnight. The International Atomic Energy Agency is now monitoring the situation. So far, there's no indication that any radioactive material has been released. Russia's central bank has raised its key interest rate to an unprecedented 20%. It's trying to shore up the ruble, which has fallen to an all-time low now against the dollar following Western sanctions on Moscow. They include the blocking of some Russian banks from the international banking system, SWIFT. You're up to date here on GB News. We're on your TV, online and DAB Plus radio. Now, let's head to the briefing with Tom.
Good morning, it's 9:33 and you're watching The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, on your TV and your radio. Now, before we get to the issues today, we need a reality check. Understandably, morale matters, and it's heartwarming to see acts of Ukrainian heroism, global solidarity and Russian folly being shared. But in being focused in solely keeping up morale, in reporting and in sharing only the positives of how Putin's invasion is being slowed, we may sadly be doing a disservice to the fundamentals. We're all more likely to want to share uplifting news, to emphasise the positives, and this may distort our perspectives. I want to believe that Putin is on the brink of being brought down. I want to believe that the Russian army will be kept out of Kiev. And consequently, optimism bias may distort our understanding of the real picture. Ukraine has been invaded. Russia is still advancing. The Ukrainian army is putting up, no doubt, a brave fight, but it is on the back foot. Hundreds of thousands of people are fleeing the country. And despite the heroism of President Zelensky and the bravery of so many Ukrainian people taking up arms for the first time to defend their territory, they do so against incomparable might and planning. This is a David versus Goliath fight, and as the West will understandably not set foot in Ukraine, will not risk a move that could precipitate nuclear conflict, consequently, the odds are simply fundamentally against the Ukrainians here. The chances of Russian military victory in Putin's war of aggression are still, sadly, overwhelming. And it's not my job as a journalist to pretend things are more positive than they are, to ignore the fact that Russian troops will soon be on the streets of Kiev. Fundamentally, Ukraine needs more support and Russia needs more punishment. Russia is overwhelmingly likely to win the short-term military portion of this fight. But what other kind of victory could we still seek out in the West? If military victory is overwhelmingly likely for the Russian army, what of their capacity to keep the peace? How long could that initial victory feasibly last? Do they risk a forever war? And what pressure points may change the Kremlin's calculation here? This morning, the Moscow Stock Exchange did not open as usual. We'll hear an announcement about when it will open later this morning. $10 billion has already been withdrawn from Russian banks in recent days, and the possibility of a real run on those banks is growing. Could genuine financial chaos in Russia destabilise Mr. Putin? Could the oligarchs who prop him up decide it's no longer worth doing so? Might the consequences of this war of aggression simply be too much for the Russian state to weather? Has Mr. Putin, in reality, already sealed his fate? Well, the Russian ruble has plunged 30% against the US dollar, a new record low, after some of those countries, the banks in that country were banned from using the SWIFT international payment system. The Bank of Russia has since hiked its interest rate to an eye-watering 20% to help cushion that impact, more than double its previous rate of 9.5%. And of course, markets did not open this morning in the usual way. So what can we expect to happen to the Russian economy now? Well, joining me is the economist and wealth advisor, Jonathan Davis. Welcome to the programme. Let's talk about the possibility of a run on Russian banks. Already an extraordinary amount of money has been withdrawn, and we're expecting more to be withdrawn today. What, in your view, is exactly going to happen?
Well, it seems to me that the Russians are being forced to question whether or not they should supply Europe, and particularly Germany, with gas. If financial sanctions take place, as is being mooted, Putin and the owners of all the big companies in Russia will have nothing to lose to switch off the pipelines. They own the Nord Stream 2 pipeline that serves Germany and the rest of Europe. If Europe doesn't get gas, then one thing for sure, apart from the fact that people won't be able to heat their homes, or industry will be able to power and make things like cars, for example, without gas, you can't have ammonia, which is not particularly well known by folk in the media. And if you can't have ammonia, then you can't have fertilizer. And if you can't have fertilizer, you can't have food. So what the hell are the West doing making Russia go into Ukraine?
The West making Russia go into Ukraine? What on earth kind of
because
assessment
20
is that?
years ago, Tom, this is not being discussed in the media. 20 or 30
I'm
years
sorry,
ago, I can't
that
remember
is-
exactly when.
That is conspiracist
the Americans
nonsense.
and the British said
Russia
that
has started a
NATO
war
would
of
not
aggression
go-
against Ukraine. Ukraine, as a free and independent sovereign territory, wished to enhance its security by joining an international defensive alliance. And Russia wants to seize its territory.
20 odd years ago, the NATO, US, and UK said to everyone that we will not take NATO to the east. And in recent years, particularly Biden, the last year, has said we want NATO in Ukraine.
Sorry, I
What's
wanted this
Putin
to be a
supposed to
financial
do?
discussion, but very clearly we're entering the realms of conspiracy. Do you not believe it is the free, sovereign right of any state to join whatever alliance they so choose?
It is the duty and responsibility of every country to protect themselves.
This is a pretty extraordinary situation because, of course, it is overwhelmingly the case that Russia has started a war of aggression to seize parts of another sovereign territory. It's pretty right that the West punishes Russia for that case. I wanted this to be a financial discussion about what exactly might be going on the streets of Moscow and of St. Petersburg.
Unfortunately, Tom, the punishment is going to be on the people of the West because we are not going to be able to heat our homes. And I'm telling you, there are going to be food shortages. So there has to be resolution to this pretty sharpish by escalating it both in Ukraine and Russia and in the West. Then I'm telling you, the people of the West are going to be hurt very badly by this.
Well, let's hope that we can increase domestic supplies and not be too reliant on aggressive foreign regimes. It's an interesting situation, but for now, Jonathan Davis, thank you for joining us here on the briefing this morning. Now, what more can the UK do to help the Ukrainian people as Russia continues its advance into that country? Joining me now is Ukraine MP Alexei Goncharenko. Welcome to the programme. First of all, we're hearing reports this morning that your president is asking for a sped-up accession into the European Union. Is that a call that you would support?
Yes, absolutely. And I've heard a little piece of discussion your previous, and I just want to say several words. I will be very calm. I just want to tell again what is very important. How Russia is protecting its security, just killing our children. We have 16 children killed. We have more than 350 adults killed. We have millions of people hiding in shelters and in metro, like in London in 1940. So that's probably Hitler also thought that he was struggling for his security, bombing London, killing Englishmen there at that time. Probably he was looking for security of the Third Reich in France, in Belgium, in Poland, in Ukraine. That's the story, because Putin is a Hitler of 21st century. And I know that even at that time there were some strange people who said, oh, he has the right to kill other people. But I don't accept that somebody has this right. We are not invading to anybody, we are not aggressors to anybody, but we will kill them. They came to our land and we will kill them in thousands, and we are doing this right now. Thousands of them are dead because they came to us, to our home, to kill us, and we will not gonna give them this possibility. About your question about European Union, that's the future of our country. I'm sure that everybody now in Europe understands that in reality, Europe cannot be safe without safe Ukraine. That's clear. Just to see that where our territory is bombed, we have nuclear power stations. Is it safe for the world? Just from the point of ecology, we have chemical factories, pipelines. And secondly, millions of refugees. Where will they go if their houses will be bombed and destroyed by Russian aggressor? And thirdly, and the most important, if somebody thinks that aggressor will stop on Ukraine, That's a huge mistake. In 1938, Europe made this mistake and tried to appease aggressor. And how it ended all? It ended with a bigger war, because such peace is false peace. We need to stop aggressor and to take Ukraine in European Union. It means to make European Union stronger, because our army is the strongest army in Europe. Everybody sees this now. And it will make certainly the whole world safer place, because we are not going to invade to anybody, but we will protect ourselves, and Ukraine will protect Europe like we do now.
And can I just thank you for your words that you started this conversation with? I have to say that the vast majority of people in the United Kingdom certainly, but also by the looks in Europe and in the United States stand solidly behind you and your cause. Joining the European Union is something that can't happen in short order, and currently in the next days and weeks there are real issues and decisions to be dealt with. What more would you like to see the United Kingdom in particular do in the next days and weeks that might be of assistance?
Thank you very much for your question. Yes, what we need now we need non-fly zone over Ukraine, because we are not looking for for boots on our ground. We are ready to fight ourselves, and we don't ask British people, American people to fight for us. But we ask you to help us to protect the skies, because the Russians are using aircrafts and missiles to hit residential houses, kindergartens, hospitals, schools. Just this night they destroyed a museum with Maria Primachenko, which is one of the best in the world primitivists. And a number of her paintings are lost for the culture of the whole world, and so on and so on. So they are making a genocide, real genocide, in the middle of Europe in the 21st century. So please help us, and I address to British politicians and to British society and those who listen to us, to push their politicians to make this decision to help us to protect the skies. That's important. And secondly, sanctions. It's ban on Russian energy. That will end this war very quickly. If there will be embargo on Russian oil and gas, because Russian oil and gas is now bloody gas, bloody oil, because it's full of Ukrainian blood. Now, that will stop war very quickly, because what is Russia? Russia is a very big gas station. That's all. That's all. 2/3 of their export is oil and gas. Without this, the economy will stop, and Putin will need to go to peace talk. We want only peace. We don't want to take Moscow. We don't want their land. We just want them to go out from our country. That's what we want.
And it's your assessment, then, that were we to have a Europe-wide or a Western-wide embargo against Russian energy, that could precipitate the fall of Mr. Putin?
Yes, that will stop him, because he will not have a possibility to afford this aggression anymore. I spoke this night, Ukrainian night, it was time in Ukraine, with 6 or 7 prominent Republican congressmen, special conference in Zoom, and I said this to them. I spoke with the members of House of Commons and House of Lords, because I have many friends among them, and including I'm a member of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, and including UK leader of delegation to the PACE, John Howell, Ian Liddell-Granger, who is head of European Conservatives group, and I asked their help. So I address this to all my colleagues with whom I am working, and certainly I address it to public, to society. We need to do it together. Let's show that free world is strong enough. Because after Afghanistan, it seems to me that some dictators decided that free world is not so strong, it is weak, and they can do wherever they want. And that is a huge challenge for the world. We need to show them now that free world can unite and can be strong enough, and that will end the crisis. In other case, we will have only bigger and bigger and bigger crisis, and more and more and more dangerous.
I noticed that behind you there's a guy, I believe that's an AK-47 sitting on your shelf.
Absolutely, shot one, yes.
Are you personally ready to get there out on the streets and fight the Russian invaders?
Yes, that's my personal. I'm not military man. I have very little military experience, but I'm in the center of Kiev, and I'm in the battalion of territorial defense. And if Russian occupants will enter the city, here there will be a hell for them, and I will be a part of this hell.
And can you give us a sense of what is going on right now in the centre of Kiev? Can you hear the Russian bombs coming down? How close have they got to you this moment?
This night was probably the calmest from the beginning, because we are really winning them. And they tried to take Kiev, Putin said, in 2 days. Then by the way, his puppet regime in Belarus, Lukashenko, just for understanding, again, that they will not stop, they would not never stop on Ukraine. He said, when we will start the war, it was several days before the war, we will take Ukraine in hours, and in 3 days we will be at La Manche. So for your understanding, where they extend their ambitions. So as you see, they're not at La Manche, but there are thousands in hell already, and they couldn't even to get to Kiev. So this night was probably the calmest one, because last night they entered a little bit Kiev and they were destroyed on the streets of Kiev. This night they couldn't enter at all. So, but there was air attacks, and there was the Syrians, and people were running to shelters. But this became, our routine. But there are no fightings on the streets, and the city is completely safe. And today there is an end of curfew. There was a curfew in the city for the last 2 days, but now people can go to the streets and can move around. So we have situation under control.
Now, we've been hearing in the UK that some former servicemen from this country may be going across to help out in Ukraine. The Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, appeared to endorse that yesterday, although there's been a little bit more confusion this morning. What would be your message to former members of the British Armed Forces? Should they go and help?
Thank you very much. If you have such a desire, that's a great thing. We're really struggling here for us, for you, for our freedom, for your freedom, for our values, for your values, because we share common values. We will be happy to fight with you shoulder to shoulder. So if you have such possibility, join us. And that will be an honor for us to be fighting together with you. Let's make our page in history. Let's write this page in history. Stop this brutal war and stop this mad Hitler of 21st century, Putin.
Well, Alexei Goncharenko, thank you very much for your perspective here.
Thank you. Thank you.
And stay safe in the middle of Kiev, and good luck.
Will do.
Your fight. Thank you. Now, moving back to domestic affairs, the Treasury Select Committee will examine the UK's tax burden this afternoon, inviting experts to give evidence on our historically high level of taxation. As the government prepares to increase taxes to their highest since the 1950s, and the cost of living continues to rise, not least thanks to war in Europe, this assessment can't come soon enough. Now, one of those organisations giving evidence today is the Taxpayers Alliance, whose research director, Duncan Simpson, can join us now. Welcome to the programme, Duncan. First of all, it's pretty extraordinary that many people can see this idea that we're having the highest tax burden since the 1950s approaching us, coming from the start of the next tax year, if everything continues as it is. How is that possible, given that headline tax rates are nowhere near as high as they were, for example, in the 1970s?
That's right. I mean, the picture's pretty concerning, and this has been the case. We sort of noticed this a few years back, that, as you were saying, it's getting back to sort of post-war levels of both spending as well as taxes. So the tax burden, that's a portion of taxes relative to the size of the economy, as you say, being the biggest, I think since 1951 next year. So there's sort of two big factors at play here. So we know there are quite substantial tax rises on the horizon next financial year. So that's two things principally. That's the national insurance increase, or the health and social care levy. And then a couple more years down the track, you've also got a gradual increase in corporation tax as well. So that's quite a big chunk. Second part of it, though, I suppose you could call it a stealth tax, so which will affect many, many people. A lot of the thresholds for the payment of different types of income tax, as well as the personal allowance, they're being frozen. So that means that as people get salary increases, they're being dragged into higher rates of tax. So that's sort of one side of it. The other side, of course, is the spending. We do know before coronavirus arrived, obviously the Prime Minister, when he was elected to office in December, came out, all guns blazing with his levelling up policies. We've got a bit more, that's been slightly fleshed out exactly what that means, but essentially it means much higher spending across the UK, and those plans were recommitted to over the last couple of years. Even though we've seen enormous levels of spending to deal with COVID-19, the government is seemingly unchanged with a lot of those plans. So, as I was saying, big tax rises as well as a commitment to a much larger state from this Conservative government.
And what is the consequence of this? I mean, is it genuinely going to be the case that the government could look again at this level of taxation, particularly as the cost of living is squeezing so much? Boris Johnson used to be the kind of politician who would say that there are some taxes you can cut that spur economic growth, that bring more revenue in. Have we lost that, Boris Johnson?
It does seem that way, doesn't it? I mean, there's different ways you can do this depending on whether you're looking at, right now, the here and now, in the slightly more medium term, so in 3 to 5 years or longer term. If you're looking at sort of medium term tax changes to really spur growth, then what you want to be doing is looking at changes to national insurance. Now, remember, it's not just individuals who pay national insurance, it's employers as well. So if you are, for example, lowering employers' national insurance, the incentive to both retain staff as well as take on new ones increases. I think a very worrying change which the Chancellor came out with last year, of course, is the increase of the corporation tax. That'll move the UK not completely out of the ordinary compared to other rich countries in the OECD, but certainly slightly higher than the average, and that's a pretty drastic change from the current situation. Really sort of addressing those two taxes would be a good idea for the government to really spur growth. Obviously, we need growth to encourage investment, to improve productivity in this country, the latter of which has been terrible for generations, not just under this government. So the government's going to grasp the nettle and sort of really acknowledge the severity of the economic situation which we're currently in, and indeed will likely be facing an even worse situation with what's happening in Ukraine at the moment, then that's certainly something they should pursue. But as you were sort of alluding to, the mood music doesn't seem particularly welcome from the government in that front.
Forward to the outcome of that evidence session today. Let's hope it can spur some minds and maybe change government policy. For now, Duncan Simpson, thank you for joining us here on The Briefing, and good luck with your organisation's evidence later today. Well, that's it for The Briefing this morning. Coming up, it's To The Point with Patrick Christys and Mercy Muroki. But first, here's a little treat. I'm going to read you the weather. Now, looking ahead to today's weather, and the UK is looking rather cloudy with outbreaks of heavy rain slowly moving north and east. Let's have a look at these details. The rain will become persistent and heavy across southwest England as we head towards lunchtime. Temperatures will reach around 10 or 11 degrees Celsius, which will feel much brisker in coastal areas. It'll be looking bright and dry across southeast England and London with some morning sunshine, but clouds will increase from the west. Temperatures here widely in double figures. Back to Wales, where it will be a cloudy morning with rain spreading across the country and becoming heavier over higher ground. After a fairly bright start, the Midlands will see increasing amounts of cloud with some risk of some patchy rain moving in. But by the time we get to midday, temperatures around 9 Celsius here. Now, similar weather conditions across northern England with cloud increasing quickly and outbreaks of rain moving from the southwest. Some drier interludes will hold on towards Newcastle. Temperatures around the average for the end of February. Now, sunshine and scattered showers across northern parts of Scotland, but it will be cloudier further south with increasing amounts of rain moving in. Temperatures will be around 9 Celsius for Edinburgh. Northern Ireland should escape most of the heavy rain with some bright and sunny spells, but also a possible scattering of showers. Temperatures will rise to around 9 degrees Celsius. The band of rain will continue to move east as we head through the rest of the day, so later on western areas will be drier. And that's how the weather is shaping up for the rest of the day.
GB News is the UK's home of discussion and debate
from all perspectives.
To stay up to date on the latest stories,
make sure that you subscribe to the GB News channel
right here on YouTube.
You can watch us live 24/7 across the whole world.
You can also check out exclusive content and catch up on previous episodes of your favourite shows.
Every day, we ask the questions
that you'd ask, so why not add your voice to the conversation in the comments section?
Don't forget to subscribe. We are GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every
Every night at 11 on GB News, we bring you the next day's stories the day before.
Basically like time travel.
If it's a big story, we'll cover it, guaranteed. But we'll also have some fun along the way.
Big opinions, big laughs. Sometimes big hair.
This is
Headliners, the paper review show that won't send you to sleep like the others will.
11 p.m, 7 nights a week. Join us.